What's up everyone, John Rettinger from TechnoBuffalo here, back with another smartphone smackdown. This time we've got a carrier war. We've got AT&T's iPhone 4 squaring up against Verizon's Droid 2. We're going to put these two head to head in a grueling 9-round test and declare a winner. Let's get started. So we are going to put these two head-to-head in a 9-round series of tests. Rounds are going to include call quality, battery, browser, speed, signal, text entry, screen, specs, and a new category called value. Obviously there's a lot more we could cover, but in the interest of brevity, we're going to limit it to just those 9 rounds. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about call quality. These are cell phones, and no matter what else they do, if they don't make good phone calls, they're not going to work for you. Well, call quality on each was very strong. On the iPhone 4, I had no white noise or popping on my end or the caller's other end, and the same thing on the Droid 2. Very crisp, very clear. However, on a 10-call test, driving in different areas, I had 2 dropped calls on the iPhone 4 compared to 1 dropped call on the Droid 2, and it's pretty representative of the dropped call issue. Nothing about the antennas. I haven't had any antenna issues really with the iPhone 4 since I had it covered and protected. But I have noticed that the Droid 2 does drop about 10% less phone calls than the iPhone 4 does. So because of that, round 1 call quality is going to the Droid 2. Now, these phones obviously do a lot of things, email, text, web browsing. It's going to take a lot of battery life. So these things need to be able to last at least a full day till you can get to your charger. So battery-wise, the iPhone 4 is going to give you 14 hours of talk time and 300 hours of standby. And the Droid 2 is going to give you 9.58 hours of talk time and 315 hours of standby. And that's just what Motorola and Apple claim. Real world usage is actually very different. I'm as you can imagine, a very heavy smartphone user. I'm on the phone for a few hours a day. I'm doing a ton of browsing, and I always have push email on, getting a lot of emails. With the iPhone 4 on heavy usage, I generally have around 40% of battery left towards the end of the day. With the Droid 2 is around 20 to 10% battery life towards the end of the day. So real world usage, I'm getting much better battery life out of the iPhone 4, using them both in the same way, really at the same times. So battery life is going to go to the iPhone 4. Next, let's talk about the browser. Like I mentioned, I use the browser quite a bit on my phones, and this is something where the iPhone used to have a very clear edge when Android first launched. Android didn't have multi-touch, it really didn't have the best browsing experience, so it was decent. Well, Android, once it got to the 2s, really took care of that, so 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, and the rest really brought the Android browser up to par with what you can expect on the iPhone 4. But let me go ahead and jump in and show you what the browsers look like on each, although you probably are familiar with both of them. So you got TechnoBuffalo here queued up on both. It's very smooth browsing on the iPhone 4. Really one of the smoothest browsing experiences that I've seen. You can scroll without really experiencing any sort of checkerboard pattern. The multi-touch is really pretty smooth. No delay or lag at all. The iPhone does support HTML5, but does not support any type of Flash content. Now, that hasn't really been a problem for me, but I understand that I am not everyone out there. A lot of people rely on Flash content for their phones. And the iPhone is not going to deliver that. However, the Droid 2 may be more what you're looking for. Notice that the scrolling experience is not nearly as smooth as is on the iPhone 4. If you go back and forth, you can see that it's a little bit choppier here on the Droid 2. And the multi-touch as well is a little bit choppy on the Droid 2. But it does work, and it does work actually pretty well. You can double tap to resize and those sort of things that we're used to with browsing. However, the addition of Flash is really what gives the browser on the Droid 2, this is Flash 10.1, a little bit of an edge. Those of you that follow my channel, you know I just got married recently, and I want to view my wedding pictures and show them to my family online. Well, the site that they were on was unfortunately a Flash-based site, and I couldn't show it to them on my iPhone. But I had the Droid 2 with me that I was testing. I was able to show it nice and easily. So I could live with the less smooth scrolling, be able to view the internet as it was intended, and be able to have full Flash support. So round 3 is going to swing back the way of the Droid 2, and going to take this round. So next, let's talk very quickly about speed, and we'll talk about processor and such when we get to the specs round. But speed is very important as well, and I want to demonstrate speed actually on the browser. Let me go ahead and make sure everything is closed on each, so we're getting a apples to Android comparison here. So I've got a app kill. I'll go ahead and kill everything. So everything is now killed on the Droid 2. Let me go ahead and do the same thing here. We'll go ahead and just leave the browser open because that's what we're going to be working with. So open the browser here. We'll go ahead and open the browser here as well. And we're going to do a simple page refresh of TechnoBuffalo, which is pretty image heavy. There's some videos embedded in there. Pretty representative, I think, of a typical web browsing experience. Now, in the interest of brevity, ordinarily I would test 3 or 4 different web pages. But once this test is done, I'll give you sort of my experiences about what it's been when I've tested other websites. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh TechnoBuffalo. Go ahead and open it up here. We'll do the same thing here on the Droid 2. Go ahead and hit go on both. Alright, and we are off. Hit them both at the same time, and we'll see which one is going to come out on top. These are both connected to the same Wi-Fi network, so we should have pretty similar speeds. At least it's a fair test. And it looks like the Droid 2 finished just a second before the iPhone 4. In testing many other websites, I found the iPhone 4 generally finishes about 1 to 2 seconds earlier than the Droid 2 does. But for all intents and purposes, let's go ahead and load one more website on each. Let's go ahead and try ESPN. These are sites that have been loaded on both before, so they'll be representative of sites you visit on a regular basis. Let's go ahead and try ESPN. It should probably pull up the mobile page, I would assume. And there's ESPN. So we'll go ahead and load up both of these. And we'll see which one comes out on top. So we'll put up the mobile page. The iPhone 4 finished a second before, but there's not much here on the mobile page. Let's go ahead and load up the real version of ESPN, which is extremely image and text heavy. So I'll go ahead and select it down there, and I'll select it down here, and we'll hit open at the same time. Open and open, and we'll let both of those go, and we'll see which one is faster. iPhone 4 is showing the content a little bit earlier. It's like the Droid 2 caught up pretty quickly. It's now showing a bit more content. iPhone 4 is almost done, so is the Droid 2, and the Droid 2 finished just a second before the iPhone 4. So when it comes to browsing, despite these tests, they look to be very even. Droid 2 is maybe taking a bit of an edge on these tests. In earlier tests, it was the iPhone 4. So browser to browser, it's relatively close. You're going to get a pretty good experience on each. So go ahead and close out of this. And let's talk about speed of the operating system and speed of the devices as a whole. I've tested a lot of Android devices and a lot of Snapdragon Android devices. And I found the processor that this is running, we'll talk about this more in the specs, the TI OMAP, clocked in about 1 gigahertz, to be a bit laggy. And really just laggy on the Droid 2. It's much quicker on something like the Droid X. For example, when I want to unlock the screen, it's a bit slow. Takes a second to sort of react to my finger, and then even a second later you get that haptic feedback. When I go ahead and launch things up in the application tray, it doesn't launch as quickly as I've seen in other Android devices, which is a bit disappointing. If I go ahead and open the calendar, it seems to be a bit of a delay, just not as snappy as other devices I've seen. On the iPhone, for example, I think things are loading very quickly, and it's optimized just for the processor. I know there's probably going to be a bit of feedback about this round and whether or not it was biased or not, but I can't show you everything that I've done with both devices here in interest again of just brevity. But using the phones speed to speed wise, the iPhone 4 just feels a bit snappier. So speed is going to the iPhone 4. So this is sort of a new test as well. We're going to talk about signal strength. I took a few AT&T phones, I took a few Verizon phones, and I brought them out to the same area to see how the radios are going to react with the iPhone 4. So in Apple's case, or in the iPhone's case, we used a Samsung Captivate and an AT&T Palm Pre. On the Verizon side, we used a Droid X in comparison with the Droid 2, as well as a Verizon Palm Pre. And I was actually very, very, very impressed with the signal strength on the Droid 2. Motorola put in a fantastic radio, and actually where I was getting maybe 3 bars of EVDO red-based service, the Droid 2 was pulling in 4 bars. The iPhone 4 was not quite as strong as some of the other AT&T devices I tested. Even when I went into sort of some debugging and testing mode to actually see the number, the radio wasn't quite what I'd expect from a high-end phone. So signal strength, if you're in a fringe area, you're going to be doing very well with the Droid 2. If you're on AT&T, the iPhone might not be the best way to go. So signal strength, I think that's really important, is going to go to the Droid 2. Alright, next let's talk about text entry. Sort of very different stories for each. Text entry on the iPhone is really something that you've seen probably quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new message here. And you've got a portrait keyboard and a landscape keyboard. And it's got a pretty decent spell check and auto correction feature, and it works very well. I really enjoy using the iPhone 4's on-screen keyboard. Let's go ahead and jump in and look at the keyboard on the Droid 2. And you've seen what this looks like on the iPhone. I'll do a quick demonstration actually to show you a little bit about what things look like. So I'm going to open up a new note. And I'll go ahead and type. And you can see the keyboard sort of responds well. It's multi-touch. You can move your letters around as you type. It's very quick. You guys have seen me test this probably on multiple devices. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the Droid 2 and open up a new text message. And we'll see sort of what this one looks like. So you have quite a few ways to input text here on the Droid 2. You've got the same ways you have on the iPhone 4. You've got a landscape a portrait or a landscape keyboard right there, which will come up. You go ahead and type. Now, I am a big fan of the Android on-screen keyboard, especially Motorola's take on it on the Droid X. I'm not the biggest fan of it actually on the Droid 2. It seems a little bit cramped on the 3.7-inch screen when typing. It works mostly the same way we saw on the iPhone 4. You go ahead and type. Now, one thing that I really like about Android is that you actually have the voice to text. See that little microphone right there? I can go ahead and tap that, and I can tap that, and I can say what I want. It'll really, with a great degree of accuracy, type it right in for me, which is very, very nice. Now, the Droid 2 also has another way to input text. It's got a full slide-out QWERTY keyboard. It almost has a full layer on top, and each key sort of bubbled out a little bit. I was not the biggest fan of the keyboard on the Droid 1, and that's sort of true here with the Droid 2. I don't find it to be the very easiest full QWERTY keyboard to type on. So if you need to have a full QWERTY keyboard, try the Droid 2 first. So in the keyboard round, there are just many, many, many more ways to input text here on Android. You don't have to use the on-screen keyboard. You can use the physical keyboard if you want. You can use the on-screen keyboard if you use a voice to text. There are so many options to find one way that's going to work best for you. So in the text entry route, it's got to go to the Droid 2. Go ahead and close out of this. And now let's talk about screens. Since both of these rely primarily on their screens, it's going to be very important that you've got a nice screen to look at. It's going to show your images, show your text, show your videos very nicely. The screen on the iPhone 4 is 3.5 inches with a resolution of 640 by 960, and of course it's capacitive and multi-touch. The Droid 2 is a little bit bigger at 3.7 inches, but a lower resolution of 480 by 854, and is definitely capacitive and multi-touch as well. The screens are really, really, really very important to me, and there's a screen that cannot be beat is on the iPhone 4. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. It's got a higher resolution despite being a smaller screen. Pictures, images, and video really do just pop. Screen has definitely got to go to the iPhone 4. Alright, let's talk about specs a little bit here. The iPhone 4 is running iOS. The most current version now is 4.1. It's got Apple's A4 1GHz chip, 512 megabytes of RAM, 5 megapixel camera with LED flash, and now it can take HDR pictures. The Droid 2 has Android 2.2 on board. TI's OMAP processor clocked in gigahertz with 512 megabytes of RAM as well, and a 5 megapixel camera with dual LED flash. Now, if I had more time, I would do a camera test, but both pictures are pretty good. The HDR images on the iPhone 4 tend to look a little bit better, but when you take normal pictures to normal pictures, they both look pretty nice. The big difference here is Apple's A4 chip versus Texas Instruments OMAP 1GHz. It just performs better. It's optimized just for the iPhone here. TI's processor is used on a myriad of other devices. While it does work well on the Droid 2, it doesn't work as well. The operating system wasn't made for the processor, like we're seeing with the iPhone 4. Things on the iPhone 4 just tend to move a little bit quicker. So from a full specs standpoint, that round is going to go back to the iPhone 4. Now let's talk about value. This is a round that I just added for the first time due to popular demand. People want to know what these things are going to cost them. And this is going to be accurate sort of as of right now, which is the middle of September. So let's talk about the iPhone 4. You can get a 16 gigabyte model for $199 on a 2-year contract, or a 32 gigabyte model for $299. For right now, let's focus on the 16 gig for $199. So you're not going to get any sort of expandable storage on there. You're stuck at either 16 or 32. With AT&T, if you want 900 minutes to talk, it's going to cost about $60. If you want an unlimited plan, it's going to cost you an extra $10 for $70. So you can get all the talking that you want. For text messaging, you can get 1,500 texts for $15, 200 texts for $5, or unlimited for $20. So pretty decent value there for text messaging. And for data, they even have this new Data Plus plan. You get 2 gigabytes of data for $25, And if you want to add tethering, you got to chalk on another $20 for $45. So essentially, all in, with a brand new 16 gigabyte iPhone 4, you're going to be paying about $310 before taxes out of pocket. You're going to be putting in about $100 per month, assuming that you took the unlimited plan and you went for 1,500 texts and 2 gigabytes of data without tethering. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the Droid 2. It comes with 8 gigabytes already installed on the phone. You can also comes with a 8 gigabyte micro SD card to get the same 16 gigabytes of storage, but you can up that up to 32 if you like by buying an extra card. But consider you compare the 16 gig iPhone 4, we're going to stick with 16 gigs here as well. You can get 900 minutes for $60 or unlimited for $70, so the same price as AT&T. A text messaging plan is not quite as good. You can get 500 texts for about $10 or 5,000 for $20, as opposed to the unlimited for $20 that you got with AT&T. You have to pay for visual voicemails, another $3 per month, but you do get unlimited web access for $29.99 per month, which is pretty nice. If you want to add the 3G hotspot capabilities, so you can actually use your Droid 2 as a Wi-Fi hotspot, then it costs you another $20 per month. So again, assuming the same unlimited plan, now only 500 texts, the unlimited web visual voicemail is going to cost you about a little more than $300 a month. So the same price, about $100 per month. So it's about the same price-wise to get either phone. However, you are going to get more value for your money if you're a heavy internet user with the Droid 2. You're not going to be able to restrict it to that 2 gigabyte cap. However, I would assume that 2 gigabyte cap is probably coming very soon. It seems like most carriers are going to be doing it. But for right now, you are getting what they're calling unlimited. However, if you use a lot of text messaging, the iPhone 4 is going to give you a bit of a better value for the plan. But overall, I think that Verizon is offering a little bit better value for the money just based on data usage alone. So from a value standpoint, it's got to go to Verizon's Droid 2. Something that a lot of people have been asking for. So we had a 9-round test. Those of you that are keeping track at home, let's go ahead and recap the rounds. Call quality went to the Droid 2. Battery life went to the iPhone. Browser went to the Droid 2 because of Flash. Speed went to the iPhone 4. Signal strength went back to the Droid 2. Text entry stuck with the Droid 2. Screen went to the iPhone 4. Specs went to the iPhone 4. And it turned out to be a tie-breaking round. Value went to the Droid 2, which gives us a total of 5-4 in favor of the Droid 2. So in the head-to-head battle, value really came out on top, and the Droid 2 was going to be the winner. iPhone 4 is a fantastic phone. It certainly has a lot of people that love it and use it. The iPhone 4 is actually my daily driver. But when you put these two head-to-head in the test that I ran, the Droid 2 appears to be the better choice. If you're in a fringe area, you don't get the best Verizon service, you can't go wrong with the iPhone 4. These are two fantastic phones, but there can only be one winner, and the Droid 2 is that. So do you agree, disagree? I'm really curious what you guys have to say. For all your tech content, be sure to check out TechnoBuffalo. For all of our head-to-heads, we do a ton of smartphone comparisons. Be sure to check me out at Twitter, twitter.com/John4Lakers for exclusive content. I am John Rettinger, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.